All right, so today I'm going to rank NFL teams in these tiers S, A, B, C, D for the upcoming 2024 season. Um, the S tier teams, true Super Bowl contenders. I can see these teams legitimately making a run to play in February in New Orleans. And I'm going to try to limit this tier to a maximum of five to six teams because I think that's what it realistically comes down to every year. There's a lot of teams that we like, but I'm going to try to limit the S tier to five or six teams. So let's start in alphabetical order here with Arizona. I'm actually pretty high on this team, but I'm going to put them at B for now. I don't think this is a last place team like they were last year. I think they're going to be very, very much improved. They might have gotten the best player in the draft, Marvin Harrison Jr. Easily the best receiver in the draft. He's long, his hands are exceptional, his route running is exceptional. He comes from a factory of wide receivers at Ohio State, and he's going to be perfect for Kyler. Kyler's a good quarterback, so um, they're not going to be a last place team. I'm willing to put money on that, and then FC West. And Atlanta, they should win their division, but no, nothing much more than that. The NFC South is dismal, to say the least. So somebody has to win that division. I think I'm rooting for Atlanta to do it instead of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's had their runs of sneaking into playoff games and making a little bit of noise, but I think that's coming to an end. I like Kirk. He's a good distributor. He's not going to win you the big game. He's not going to go on that drive down 6-7 late in the game, but they should be playing with the lead. They should be comfortable. They have a good O-line. Keep Kirk upright, and they're going to win enough games to win that division, I think, but they may win a home game in the playoffs in round one, but that's their ceiling. I'm going to put Chicago in A. I think Caleb Williams is just generational. He moves around better than almost any other quarterback I've seen. He doesn't move like Lamar, but he's such a better thrower than Lamar. I'm not going to make this about Lamar, but Caleb can sit in the pocket. He can move the pocket. He can endure a collapsed pocket. He has the arm talent to rival Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Herbert. He has that kind of arm, and his mobility is exceptional. His instincts are exceptional. His intangibles are exceptional. I think everyone realized since this time last year that he's special, that he doesn't look like any other college quarterback, and right now he doesn't look like any other rookie quarterback. And I'm sure like in 3 years from now, he's not going to look like any other starting quarterback other than Mahomes. And that's just Caleb. The Bears have rebuilt this roster exceptionally. Credit Ryan Pace, their GM. Keenan Allen is a serviceable target. I'm not saying he is what he once was 4 years ago for the Chargers, but he's a really good wideout. The wide receiver they drafted in the first round as well, Rome Odunze. He's I don't think he's exceptional, but he's good. He's good. He can be a B. He can be a good 2. Cole Kmet at the tight end position. Their defense was really improved late last year with Montez Sweat. Yeah, and I think Caleb is going to be one of those players that elevates everyone else. So they can win 9 games. They can make the playoffs easily, and I think they're going to make Detroit suffer and Green Bay suffer. Some of the favorites in that division. So don't overlook Chicago at all. Baltimore is going to go in the A tier, and this does come down to Lamar. I don't think he can make that throw off the back leg with 2 defenders, 2 defensive tackles and defensive ends right in his face. It's just it was disappointing to see him last year be the 1 seed, have a home playoff game in the AFC title game, have the best defense in the league by far, which got depleted this offseason, and he wasn't able to come through. I don't think he has the arm talent to make that big throw down late. So he's improved as a passer, but I don't see it. I don't see him taking Baltimore to a Super Bowl. I expect some regression. They may not even win the division this year with Cincinnati being improved. I don't like putting Carolina in D, but I'm going to have to. I don't see enough talent on this team. Adam Thielen being a wide receiver one's not going to cut it. I'm a big fan of Bryce Young, but he doesn't have the body. He doesn't have the arm talent to overcome chaos on the offensive line and at the skill positions that the Carolina Panthers have made him endure. So I feel for him in that sense, but it's not nothing that he can do really. So I do think their coach could be promising though. That's why I was thinking about putting them in the C tier. James Borrego, I believe is his name. He can be promising. He's an intellectual. He knows. He can be one of those quarterback whisperers that Bryce Young can take a stride in, but I'm not holding my breath in that respect. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to benefit from having more doubters this year. Obviously, last year was the best offensive season that Dak Prescott has had, and then you see Micah Parsons being one of the best defensive players in the league and CeeDee Lamb breaking a bunch of Cowboy records, but I think this year we expect them, or most of the media is discussing them as like being in a tier below the San Franciscos and below the Detroits and below the Green Bays in the NFC. And I don't exactly buy that because Dak is in a walk year. He knows this might be his last year with Dallas. CeeDee's going to get paid. He's going to be part of this roster. And I don't know. I think teams can flourish when they have a little less eyes on them. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys will always be at the forefront of media attention and all that stuff, being America's team, but the expectations don't feel as paralyzing this year as they did in years past, and I think they're going to benefit from that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they put it all together finally, catch lightning in a bottle in January, and they're playing in the Super Bowl in February. I'm going to put the Rams also in the S tier. The Rams have one of the top 3 coaches in the league. Sean McVay is a mastermind offensively. The way he conducts and runs his offense, you can see it from day one in 2017 when he walked in the door, just how improved they were. And their ability to rebuild after, putting all their chips on the table and winning a Super Bowl a few years back and then having a down year after that. They dealt with injuries, some retirement, some aging across their roster, but my God, what a master at rebuilding, drafting him and that GM are. It's been really fun to watch. They have a lot of talent, young talent on defense, and Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, they're definitely going to get open. And this is me putting them in the S tier because I believe in Stafford being able to distribute the ball and putting it and getting rid of it on time. And I just think he needs to put it in their hands, put it in the hands of his playmakers, Kyren Williams as well. And I like the draft pick of Blake Corum out of Michigan. If Stafford can put the ball in his playmakers' hands, I think they're going to be fine. I think they can once again win 10 games, maybe even 11. I don't see a huge gap between them and San Francisco. So that division could get interesting. I'm going to talk about my Jets. Being an A-tier team for the Jets is like them being on cloud 9. They're usually in the C and D range, just chaotic and unstable front office down, but I don't see how a 40-year-old Aaron can lead this team to the Super Bowl. There's just a little too much instability. It feels like there's not a ton of harmony with Robert Saleh and Aaron, and the team is young. The team has superstars on both sides of the ball for sure. I don't trust Mike Williams' health. I don't trust the health of offensive linemen like Tyron Smith. They're obviously extremely talented, but when the season is 9, 10, 11 weeks old and they're battling and playing games on a short week, a lot of primetime games, I think they're going to deal with some tough injuries that I really do hope this team makes the playoffs. I think they will after the fiasco last year with Aaron, but it's going to be tough because of the age of him and other players they expect to contribute at a high level. So I'm just going to limit them at the A tier for now. And I'm actually going to do the same with Buffalo. Josh is exceptional. Josh has as much arm talent as anyone in the league. Josh scores as many touchdowns as anyone in the league, but his numbers are a little bit inflated in the sense that he's the Bills' number one option in goal line run situations as well as pass situations. So he's pretty much the only guy that puts the ball in the end zone for them. With that said, they have very depleted skill position group right now. It's not good. Stefon Diggs was a diva, but I don't think it'll be addition by subtraction. I think he still did separate, and I still think he was a reliable receiver for Josh. But if it weren't for Josh, if it was another league average quarterback at this position, they might be in the B or C tier. It's just their roster is once again dealing with injuries. The defense has aged. The defense is no longer what it was 2 to 3 years ago. Matt Milano suffered another injury. He's going to miss time. And I think teams in the East have caught up to them. I think the Jets have definitely caught up to him. And I think Miami has as well. Miami is also going to be in this A tier. These teams will all finish with between 11 and 9 wins. I think one of them will win 9, the other one will win 10, and the division winner will win 11, but it's going to be hard fought. I expect these teams to split most of their matchups, go 1-1 against each other, but Tua doesn't have the arm talent. He doesn't have the arm and to win late in the season, December, January, February, when it gets cold winter months, especially on the road. That's why he's a September champ, he's an October champ, nice warm weather down there in Miami, but even with Tyreek, I do respect Tyreek and Tua for putting up the numbers, but we've seen them in the playoffs. We saw them last year on Peacock against the Chiefs. It was embarrassing. They didn't belong there. Tua actually gave away the division late last year to Buffalo. They may win the division this year, but they also have a ceiling. I don't see, out of everyone in the A tier right there, I think they may be the worst team out of them so far. Cleveland, I do expect them to take a step back as well. The Deshaun Watson contract is paralyzing. He's getting paid like a top 20 guy, or a top 5 guy, but he's producing like a top 20 guy. He's not what he once was, and that's unfortunate for them because they really did have a gifted defense last year with pillars like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward, and I do love Kevin Stefanski. He's a really, really good coach, but when you're limited and you're kind of paralyzed by the most important position in all of pro sports, I think you kind of have that ceiling. Last year we saw that with in the first round of the playoffs when they sneaked in and they had to play against CJ in Houston. So I think this is a good spot for them. They may win 8 games if they're lucky and win a few close ones. They'll win 9, but I don't see much more than that for them. I think Denver's really interesting. Denver's going to be the first team going into the C tier because I don't love Bo Nix. I think he's a finished product. They just named him the starter. He's a 24-year-old rookie, which is fine in the NFL, but laughable in the NBA and stuff like that. But he's a finished product. When you spend that much time and get that many reps and snaps in college, you pretty much are what you are at this point, so don't expect any crazy growth from him. I've seen comparisons to Drew Brees because he's not the biggest guy, he's not the tallest guy, but he can distribute the ball. He is accurate with the football. I do like what he did at Oregon last year. He's a really great college quarterback, but Denver isn't, they're not oozing with talent either, so I think he's one of those quarterbacks that needs everything to be perfect around him in order to have success, but at the same time, this is all just gut instinct with him because we haven't seen him play at this level yet, so I'm not expecting too much from Denver or Bo Nix this year. Indianapolis is a beat. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the playoffs, but the AFC is just so stacked, it's so deep. I think there's something missing from them. Anthony Richardson hasn't looked brilliant in the preseason, but that I'm not going to read too much into that. He has as much talent as everything, but he's kind of one of these a little bit more erratic prospects. He didn't have a ton of reps. He was more raw, and he has a lot of figuring out to do at this level. So, and his rookie season was cut immensely short by the injury last year. But if he puts it all together, they can definitely be a playoff team and be dangerous. But I'm not counting on that. They have a lot of work to do, and this is more about the conference being stacked than me not liking them, because I do like some of their pieces. Jonathan Taylor is, he's an A running back for sure, and these are his best years. But I'm not ready to put them in a tier above this for the time being. Jacksonville is really interesting. I don't feel like just putting them in one of these mid tiers, because I know they're going to win some games, and I think Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in that division. I really do. He was in the divisional playoffs 2 years ago, and then last year he got off to a great start, 8-3, fighting for the 1 seed before the injury. He's a generational quarterback prospect that has underperformed to this point, which is why he's not higher on this list, and his team is not higher on this list. But Jacksonville has potential to... You see, the division's going to be a dogfight. I think there's at least 2 to 3 teams that are going to be... No, at least 4 to 5 teams vying for like one final playoff spot, and any of them could get it. They're all serviceable teams, but Jacksonville's right in the thick of it. It's just a really deep conference, and they're going to have a hard time setting themselves apart in that respect. Kansas City is the third team in the S tier for... Actually, I'm going to put them up here because they're just the best, but they have the best quarterback in the history of the sport. They have the best... Probably the second best coach in the history of the sport at this point, and with the league shifting towards a more offensive-driven style, this is only doing wonders for Andy Reid. He's always been an offensive mastermind, and Bill Belichick's ability in the past to hold teams to 10, 7, 13 points was astounding, but that's the way the league was back then, and I'm going to be giving the same amount of credit to Andy Reid for putting up 30, 35, 40 points. And so they have the best coach in the league, they have the best quarterback in the league, they have the best tight end in the league. Last year, late, it looked like they had the best defense in the league. But if we're not willing to go that far, they have the best defensive tackle in the league in Chris Jones, who turns it up in exactly the right time. They may have the best home field advantage in the league. And they're going for a three-peat. So there's no lack of motivation. There's no lack of talent. They're so young that they're only going to get better. Mahomes is in his prime. Kelsey is hungrier than ever. Everyone knows what's at stake, and they draft well. They have the best GM as well. So they're just too well run to win less than 11 games. You know, like, they're not going to go 10-7. Worst case scenario, this is an 11-16, but they can easily go 14-3. They're that good. I think they're going to win their division comfortably, and I expect them to be playing in February in New Orleans, and if Mahomes gets his third straight ring, fourth in total, that's easily the equivalent of 6, because that's the only three-peat in the history of the sport. And he's chasing ghosts. He's closer to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady than anyone in the league currently is close to him. So he's separated himself to that extent, and we just have to enjoy him. We just have to enjoy him. He's that good, and these guys don't play forever, so let's cherish him. I think the Raiders are chaotic, but they're not at the bottom. I think Antonio Pierce is the wrong head coaching hire. He doesn't feel like one of these offensive masterminds that is the norm for head coaching hires nowadays. He's not an intellectual. He's more rugged, and he's more of a motivator, which is fine if you're dealing with an intern head coach during the middle of the season and just trying to clean up some chaos. But if you're trying to build something for the future, I'm looking for coaches more like the Sean McVays and the Kyle Shanahans and the Matt LaFleur's, the team builders, the savants, the intellectuals, the guys who can create an offense. And Antonio Pierce isn't that, and to make matters worse, he doesn't have a quarterback. I feel for Devontae Adams. I would love him in Gotham Green for the Jets, but I'm not willing to give up a first-round pick for him. Best case scenario, I'm giving up a third or something like that. But if he wants to catch passes from Aaron He knows where he's playing. Let's see. The J.J. McCarthy injury hurts. I like, kind of in the same boat as Las Vegas. I really do feel for Justin Jefferson. He's the best pass catcher in the league for sure. Hands down, but I like Sam Darnold. I liked him coming out of USC, but he's not a game changer at the position. This is probably a last place team in their division, unfortunately, and they've lost some pieces. And losing Kirk is kind of the end of an era, if you will. So they're gonna have to turn the page. And J.J. McCarthy was showing promise in the preseason, but they're just gonna have to grow from that. I do like their coach O'Connell. He's really bright. He's also one of those next gen head coaches, offensively inclined, and he does a lot of things well. Seattle is interesting. I'm gonna put them here as well because they're also enduring a lot of change, and I think they're in a tough division. But I like the Sam Howell trade a lot. I think Geno's going to put up some good numbers, but their roster leaves something to be desired. I think a lot of people were expecting them to take a big step forward last year. That didn't happen. So maybe it will this year when people aren't putting those same kind of expectations on them, but they were obviously in the playoffs 2 years ago, and I don't see that this year. I think they're a little bit limited across the board. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a good player, but he's not one of those game changers, and I think this is a good spot for Seattle. Jaden Daniels is really intriguing. He's extremely talented. He's extremely raw, but kind of in the same vein as some other quarterbacks drafted, like a Drake May and stuff like that, who I'm going to put right here at the bottom, Drake May, D. I was expecting Washington with the number 2 overall pick to absolutely go Drake May, but then like a week before the draft, Jaden Daniels started to pick up steam, and that's what ended up happening. I think they both looked good in the preseason. Neither of them is in the same tier as Caleb Williams, but they're both promising. I think both of these franchises look at their quarterback right now with Jaden Daniels and Drake May and say, we have something for the future. Let's see how it goes this year. We're not going to ask too much of him early on. We're going to try to build this. We know this probably isn't our year. Being more realistic, we're looking at 2025, 2026 when we can have another couple good drafts and put a really good product on the field. Washington is closer than New England. I'll say that for sure. I like their head coach, their head coaching hire, Dan Quinn. But they're definitely closer than New England, but I don't think it's the year for either of them. Tennessee might be the worst team in football this year. Will Levis might be their starter, which isn't ideal, but he did show some good flashes last year. But yeah, there's just not enough talent on this team, and they're definitely looking at the 2025 draft, looking at draft positioning, and they're definitely hoping to get that number 1 pick. New Orleans should have taken their medicine years ago. They still have Derek Carr employed. They're in salary cap hell, as they say, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel for them. They went all in with Drew Brees, and that's respectable. But as soon as Drew Brees retired, they should have blown it up. But they thought they were still in contention. They're still suffering because of that. They're gonna perennially win 7 to 8 games, maybe, and just because of the mere fact they're in the NFC South, and it's just terrible. Along the same vein as Tampa, I'm not high on Baker as well. So I think both of these teams have mediocre quarterbacks, but their win totals are a little bit inflated because they play in such a poor division and they can feast on Carolina twice a year. So I don't expect vast improvement from the NFC South as a whole. New York is chaotic. I heard a really good take a few weeks ago that they might be in on Dak. They might be in on Bill Belichick as a package deal for 2025 because they're going nowhere this year. Malik Neighbors didn't feel like a brilliant pick by them when they don't have someone to toss him the football. Daniel Jones looks better aesthetically with his beard this offseason, but he's never had the talent of a top 6 pick like he was taken. So when you're limited at that position to begin with, you're going to have a hard time overachieving or achieving where you should be. Detroit is for sure a Super Bowl contender. Their progression has been linear, as most progressions are, which is a really good sign. Those are the progressions, those are the progress reports of teams that don't usually fall off a cliff. So for being their first time in the playoffs last year, from absolutely knocking on the door 2 years ago, 1 win away from the playoffs, then getting in the playoffs and winning 2 games, NFC title game, they should have won that game as well. They're in a really good spot. They have their guys locked up, under contract. Jared Goff is an exceptional distributor, especially if at home in a dome with a really good O-line, running game, things working for him, nice weather. He's an exceptional quarterback, really efficient, good for the city, good for the coaching staff. Dan Campbell is Antonio Pierce, but with a better roster. And I think he's a better coach as well, but he's in the same category as Antonio Pierce, being a motivator and getting the best out of his guys. The guys would run through a wall for him, and that also is really valuable. So I like Detroit. If they do not make the Super Bowl this year, I think that would be a disappointment at this point, because they've invested a lot. They have a lot of talent. They've been exposed to the postseason last year, so I think this is a year they need it to all come together, and they have a really good shot, as good of a shot as anyone, but we'll see. Pittsburgh is probably a B team. 8-9 wins. They're definitely not going to have the same quarterback for 17 regular season games. Russell Wilson is probably going to start early in the year, and then they're going to hit a wall. They're going to realize he has no more legs. His arm talent is very depleted. They're going to try to get a boost from the athletic, the erratic Justin Fields, the project Justin Fields, and they may win a few games because Tomlin is just that much of a good coach at piecing things together and making sure they're always a respectable product on that field. But nothing more than that. I don't expect them in the playoffs, and this might be Tomlin's first losing season. I know people say that every single year, but if I'm right, because this is the first time I say that personally on record, 2024 being Mike Tomlin's first losing season, I want some credit for that. But I'm not high on them, and let's see. I'm looking at these remaining 6 teams, and I see that I can only put 2 in the S tier as Super Bowl contenders. One of them has to be San Francisco. I'm not going to disrespect them like that. So 1 out of these remaining 5 teams, I know it's definitely not the Chargers, and definitely not Philadelphia. So it has to be one of these 3 teams that's another bona fide Super Bowl contender. As far as the Chargers and Philadelphia, Philly's a little bit better because they have such good talent and pillars on this team that have been around for a really long time. I know losing Jason Kelce hurts a ton, but they're still going to have Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on offense. So I think another year with kind of a fresh identity. It was a transition year from them after the Super Bowl, losing both their coordinators, so I think they're going to have a little bit more familiarity. And I think they're going to be better offensively, but there's a lot of holes in that secondary. They're counting on a lot of rookies, a lot of people trying to make a name for themselves in that secondary and on that defense. So they're not as good as Dallas, and they're going to be fighting for a wild card spot again. The Chargers, I'm not a believer in. I think they're also an unstable franchise. And they're nowhere near Kansas City. They're also going to be fighting for that 9th win to sneak into the playoffs as a 7 seed. So Harbaugh is helpful. He definitely makes things better. He's an upgrade over Staley, but Herbert has plateaued, and I'm not sure if he has another big step in him, big step forward, because what we saw in his rookie year is the best version of him that we've seen, and that shouldn't be the case at all. Okay. I'm going to put Green Bay here just for the sake of having an AFC team in the S tier. And for me, it's going to have to be Cincinnati and not Houston. They're both exceptional teams. It's just because Cincinnati is more experienced. I don't like the Jamar Chase holdout. I think that's a distraction. But if anyone can handle it, if anyone can rein him in, it's his college football teammate, Joe Burrow. He's a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback, probably the second best in the sport right now. And if he stays healthy, this team will be playing in late January with a chance to play in early February, but that's a big if for him. He's suffered injuries in the past, and if he can turn that page and stay healthy and play a good 16, 17 games this year, I like Cincinnati a lot, and I do like the list. I think those are a solid 6 teams to have in that Super Bowl bubble. Obviously headlined by Kansas City, and those bottom 4 teams are going to be once again competing for the top 4 picks. And yeah, that's definitely the way I see things shaking out. I'll check in with this list during mid-season or late in the season to see how it's going and which of these teams is making me look like a donkey. But I think the team I'm less confident in where I place them is probably Jacksonville, because I can't really read them. When they're fine and they're clicking and they're healthy, they're a really good team, and they could easily be in the A tier if not the S tier. But at the same time, they imploded last year, so I need to see. They haven't given me a reason as of late to put them any higher than they are. But thank you for watching.